What is up, guys? Fadeaway82 coming at you with another edition of Rust Cribs, in which we take a look at some of the more noteworthy base designs during the past wipe cycle on the US Rustopia server. This is a series that focuses on taking a look at building trends in Rust, how building has evolved. With each iteration of the game comes with it different practices for building. So we talk about best practices to be able to build and defend your base. And with this iteration of Rust came some big changes to the way that players were building. Ladders were no longer in play for raiding purposes, and they couldn't be placed in building blocked areas. So that's changing what you're seeing in terms of most of the base designs here. Right off the bat, we're taking a look at a base design by the LQM clan. LQM always brings their A game when it comes to building. During the past few wipe cycles, they've had a bit of a rough go. They built bases with large towers that tended to get rocketed out of the sky. This wipe cycle, however, they had a lot of luck with this design, and it was an absolutely sprawling design that they built here. The main base has various towers coming out of it, and this base was attempted to be raided. There were some firefights that went on around this compound, and the attackers actually told me that those towers in the center of that main base were actually a bit of a camouflage. It was very difficult to see where the LQM members were. They tended to blend in with those towers, and it gave them a bit of a natural sort of vantage point when they were in there, that they could see the attackers, but the attackers couldn't really see them because those towers sort of bled together when they were looking at them. It's a really stunning base design, and I think it's really a testament to what players can do when they put their resources together in the game. It's really a beautiful compound, and I don't know if the footage really does it justice, but it really impressed me when I saw it, and hats off to LQM this wipe cycle. And now we're taking a look at the compound of Dirt McGirt and crew over here. The primary architects of this base design were Tim Nagat, his master builder, and Dirt McGirt himself. All the clan members pitched in to build this base. As you guys can tell, the footprint of it is absolutely massive, but the primary designers were Tim Nagat and Dirt. Taking a look at the base, some of the things you want to make note of are the usage of the flank towers around the perimeter of the base, always something you want to employ in your base designs. Also, when we were zoomed in there a moment ago, there were stairs that were facing inside the inner part of that base. What those stairs are used for is that the defenders can actually run up those stairs, gain a vantage point in terms of what's going on outside, fire off shots towards attackers, and then run back down, and it's a really easy way to access the defensive positions and then get back down quickly. So take note of that as well. Something to bear in mind here is that the outer part of the base is surrounded by the concrete walls, the stone walls that have been added into the game, those perimeter walls. They are used to soak up rockets and C4. Also note that the twig ledge there is actually what they're using to build into the base itself. So the base is actually a modified system in that they build up to it with those twigs, as we can see right there. When they're logging offline or when they're out raiding, they'll go ahead and remove those twigs, so it makes it harder for the raiders to access that base, especially without being able to use ladders during this wipe cycle. Absolutely massive footprint on this base, really good stuff to see, guys, and this is what happens when the building is shifted in the game. We're not seeing those ledges that have to be used to mitigate against ladders because they're not in play on this particular iteration of the game. And just taking a look at it, this is absolutely massive base, and it just goes to show, like the LQM base, what players can do when they put their minds together. Talking to Dirt and Tim Nagat on this one, they said they built it in terms of defensive purposes. They had an inclination that the server was going to come for them this wipe cycle, and this base did withstand the test of time, and it stood up to multiple raids. And now we're taking a look at a base design by KCMO from the YAR group, also known as the Rusty Pirates. Really awesome base design, and some of the things that you guys want to take note of here are that they're using the natural formation of the landscape to their advantage. They've used the wood walls to cordon off a island here, which is fitting for the Rusty Pirates. In terms of the base design itself, the biggest feature here that is something that you want to take note of are the fact that it has suspended land bridges here. So you take note of that each building here in the inner compound is connected by a land bridge, so the members can get back and forth between those inner buildings without having to go outside and expose themselves. Really a cool concept. Also, where it was built, it utilizes the water and provides a little bit of a natural bottleneck there. Raiders don't tend to swim through the water. It tends to get cold at night, and it's also very hard to use your weapon when you're in the water, so it poses a bit of a difficulty for the raid team to come through the water. It can happen, but this does kind of mitigate against that and allows for the raiders to come through a more predictable path. Taking a look at an eye in the sky perspective, you can see that the buildings in here are nestled together nicely, and they can provide the members with vantage points in any given direction at any point in time. Really a stunning achievement. Awesome work, guys. And here we're taking a look at a compound put together by Village, Retard, and others. I'm just reading the sign, guys, that's what it says. They have put together a compound here which is also utilizing those wood perimeter walls to section it off. And they're using signs here which are pointing the defenders in the right direction, so north, east, west, and south. If you can do this, guys, you always want to go ahead and do it. When a firefight's going down, when a raid's going down, and you say, you know, the raiders are at the east side or west side, not many people are going to know where that is, so if you can use signs or symbols or something to point people in the right direction, it's always a best practice. Some other best practices that they're doing here are they're adding those stone perimeter walls around the bases to kind of shield them from rockets and C4. They have flank towers here, as we can see the one lit up there with the Batman sign, which are also a best practice. Those flank towers are essential when a raid is going down, and just to be able to sort of call out targets and gain a good vantage point for your base. They really went a bit crazy with those wood perimeter walls. You can really see that they used it in a way that is sort of bottlenecking the base. They didn't just stop there though. They went out and they actually used those along the road surrounding the base. So they made a bit of a maze here, which was a bit of a death trap for anyone who got caught in it. It was quite scary when you were in here. You sort of lost your sense of perspective, and they had signs in here so that the members could navigate it. But it was a bit of a maze. Very interesting to see the wood perimeter walls used in that regard. And now we're moving over and taking a look at the LST compound here, put together by the LST clan. This footage was taken a little bit earlier than some of the other footage. I have to record the footage when I come across it. Due to the scope of the bases on the US Restopia server, they tend to be very massive. This footage I think is very interesting though, because it sort of shows how the base is under construction and shows some of the work that it goes into building. So you can take a look at sort of the skeleton of that tower, that flank base there, and just see how many resources and how much manpower has to go into something like that. Recording on Restopia is a bit tricky. I have to do it at certain times, and I have to record various bases at different intervals, because if they get blown up, then I can't record them. So this footage was a bit early on, and later on this base was more developed, but LST brought their A game to building. They put a massive compound together here. The main base was sectioned off so that it had a main tower and then an outer perimeter, and it was surrounded by walls, which were always a best practice that you guys want to use. Anytime you can wall off your compound, you're going to want to go ahead and do that. That just sort of speaks for itself. One of the things to make note of here, guys, is that the flank tower, the height of it gives it a vantage point in any given direction, and that's something that you want to do. You always want to build your flank towers high enough so that you can see what's going on. And here we're taking a look at a base that's also under construction by Puddin, Stain, Suspect, and Black, and it also is a base that was recorded earlier on. You can see again a massive tower that's forming here. Later on, this tower was more well developed. It had more defined ledges and different points to defend against, but I think it's really cool to see sort of the skeleton again of it here, especially juxtaposed against the landscape. It really kind of shows how beautiful Rust is, I think, when you see things from this perspective, but it also shows again how much work has to go into building something like this. They really require a lot of work, a lot of precision, and a lot of dedication on the part of the players. This compound was put together along with being built in the same location as their allies, who were the YPB crew on this wipe cycle. Taking a look at the main base they have here, it was put together and it was done so in a way where it has a bit of a interesting design to it. There's some inner secrets to it that I can't reveal, but it's really cool. And panning out here again, you can just get a sense of the scope of that flank tower. And now we're moving over and taking a look at the neighbors here, which is the YPB clan. They've built a base here with a small footprint that is a bit deceptive in its design. It looks like probably not that much, that's just maybe a quarry, but it's a base that has a lot of inner secrets to it that I can't reveal. Riot always brings his A game when it comes to building, and lately YPB has been focused more on raiding, but they've been building bases with smaller footprints, which are very hard to raid. I'll say that they're honeycombed very well, and they're well thought out in terms of how things are placed. Even though it looks like it has a small footprint, it would require an absolutely massive amount of C4 to get to any type of a loot room. And an airdrop just landed on this base here, which is the FFS clan, which is Pharaoh and his group. They're a small group on the Restopia server, but they're absolutely cracked team. They're good shots. They're absolutely menacing when they roll out in force. And the base here that they've designed is one that I really like. It has a small footprint, but it's really well thought out. It's a cylindrical base that's surrounded by a few layers of those stone perimeter walls, which are really going to take a lot of C4 rockets to get through. Take note that it has a suspended land bridge that you have to use to get over it, made out of twig tiles, which they can remove when they're leaving the base or logging off. This is a bit of a take on Sir Winter's base design. If you take a look at his channel, he showed us how to kind of build a base like this. Not necessarily the cylindrical base, but showed us how to use that modified elevator system. With the changes to the building in Rust, with no longer having to worry about ladders, you can do something like this, and it's a much more effective base design. So here they really use their resources wisely, and that's really what you guys want to take note of. The resources were used very, very precisely, and every piece counts here. And here we're taking a look at the pumpkin patch, which is part of the new spawn haven put together by Harmony. She's been doing this the past few wipe cycles on Rustopia, and it's really a much needed aspect to the server. It brings new spawns together and allows for players to come here and socialize. There are signs that teach players the rules of the server and also of the game, and it's really a much needed aspect to a large server like Rustopia. And thank you, Harmony, for doing this. We really, really appreciate it, and it really fosters a sense of community that is really needed in Rust, and that adds a bit of a different thing to do besides raiding and building. It's fun to come here and socialize. With that being said, things also happen here which are a bit negative. So there was protection that was required, and players came together and helped Harmony here. They actually formed their own police department called the New Haven Police Department. And this was very interesting. The officers were always on duty patrolling this area, and it was really cool to see. She put together some great signs right out of Alice in Wonderland. Really good stuff, Harmony. Thank you again, and beautiful, beautiful work. Thank you. And now we're taking a step back in time for a moment. We're taking a look at a base from the previous wipe cycle on Rustopia. I wasn't able to do Rust Cribs last week. I had some problems getting footage. I was focused on doing some raid cams, and by the time I got around to it, bases had been blown up. But I was able to take footage of this base, which was put together by Mitsuyoshi, and it was a solo player base design. He worked hard to build this himself, and it is an old school build here in terms of old school being the past iteration, in terms of it having those ledges to mitigate against the ladders and the rockets, which are no longer necessarily needed, but this was a stunning achievement for him to do, especially working on it day and night by himself. He used 2 quarries to put it together and worked day and night to do this, and I didn't want to neglect him. I had the footage and I wanted to go ahead and use it. Thanks, man, for doing this. Much appreciated. Really cool stuff. Alright guys, now we're coming to an end with this edition of Rust Cribs. Sorry that last week I didn't upload an episode. Hope I made up for it with this one. What you're taking a look at right now is an example of a sign that was put together in relation to a raid that happened previously on the Rustopia server. The Hills Have Eyes. Really cool stuff, and it really made me think how there's a bit of lore that comes with the servers, and there's a bit of community that's fostered, and it carries over from each iteration of the game. And thanks for the community for sticking around. Rustopia is a great server, and we hope you'll continue to play on it. Thanks again, guys, for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for liking. It's always much appreciated. Fado82, peace.